He's a master communicator, here to share his wisdom with us. Trovon Williams.
What's going on, people? Y'all can do better than that. It ain't that late. Come on. How's everybody doing? Can I tell you all a little secret? There's a meeting going on right now at work. I'm thrilled to be talking to you all instead. So thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. So I can only stall for about 30 minutes, so bear with me because then I got to go back on the call. So I was thinking about this because some exciting stuff is going on across the country. I don't know if you heard, it's a presidential election coming up. We ain't gonna get into parties and stuff like that. Relax, we're fine. But around this time of the year, we get really excited about GOTV mobilization, and for my audience in particular, how do I make an impact within the community that I serve? And so we have these really, really thoughtful people. They're called our board members. We have 66 of them. Yeah, y'all pray for me. 66 of them. And we get around this time and they say, we want to talk to a new audience. We want younger, we want more progressive, we want exciting people. They want all these exciting millennials. And then we go and we do research and we get messaging and we get all this stuff. And we say, this is how we talk to these people and this is what they think of the NAACP. And then they say, I don't like none of this. I don't like anything that they're saying. I don't like how this makes me feel. One day I got really, really, in my feelings because I get excited about this stuff. And someone says, Trovon, what do you think about what the board is saying? What do you think about the feedback that you're getting? And I said, good. It's not for you. The message is not for you. See, oftentimes within the spaces that we're in, we get caught into this methodology that it's got to make me feel a certain way. But if the target demographic that I'm trying to impress upon or influence or make a catalytic change in their mind, it's really not about how I feel. I work for the preeminent civil rights organization in the nation, the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And guess what? Even we had to reimagine how we show up. As any nonprofit in any space that we have an opportunity to grow our audience, to influence in a more impactful manner, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and decide that you're going to do some things in a way that you haven't always done it. Can't keep doing the same thing you've always done. Can't keep messaging the way you've always messaged. Not if you're trying to grow. Not if you're trying to evolve. I can't live in history books anymore. I got to live on the front lines through technology and through mechanisms that make sense to the audience that I'm trying to appeal to. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that you need to do differently. Who are you talking to? What are you talking about? And why are you talking? Why do you get to say anything at all? Who are you talking to? It's about us as communicators getting to know the audience and the individuals to determine how we connect more appropriately. So what I'm actually asking myself in this moment is, if I'm trying to grow my audience, if I'm trying to be in spaces that I haven't traditionally been in before, then I have to whet the appetite of the audience that I'm trying to portray to. Well, you know, all of us have these really, really robust email database. You got all those names in there. You're all excited about that. We have 800,000 names in our email database, and you get all excited about those. And we're talking about getting them all excited about doing something, but it's like you're talking to the same people you've always been talking to. Anybody familiar with that? Yeah. But if I'm trying to grow that audience more progressively, I got to speak into spaces I haven't traditionally been in. I already got those people in my ecosystem. How do I get new people? And in order to do that, I have to look at my information more substantially and say, how do I show up differently? What's going to resonate with that audience in a manner that makes a lot of sense? Watch this. This is something we found out a little while ago. In 2019, 58% of Black America was what? Under the age of 38 years old. So unfortunately, I don't fit the threshold anymore. I'm out. I just missed the threshold. I'm 39, so they don't care what I think anymore. But 58% of Black America is 38 or younger. That means that how I'm communicating to them is very different than how I communicate to my father, who's in his 60s. It means something completely different to him. So those messaging points that were resonating back in the day, maybe in the 80s, 90s, that's great. But how do I make it matter to the audience that I'm trying to appeal to today? And many of you all probably have similar instances within your own space. Your target audience is going to evolve and it's going to change over time. Are you changing and evolving with them in the same manner? The mechanisms that I'm using, yeah, everybody has a substantial email database. But are you utilizing digital footprints and mechanisms appropriately to make sure that we're not spending a lot of time speaking to these people in a space that they don't want to hear from? Anybody familiar with heat mapping for your emails? You all use that? Oh, that tells a lot of stories about whether or not you're wasting your time, right? When I first got to the NAACP in 2019, we used to write these really, really, really long emails. Like, almost like you were turning in homework assignments. And we would write these messaging and write these points, and by the time you finish writing it, it's like, I don't even know what point we were trying to make when we started writing all this, right? So we started implementing things like heat mapping so we could take a look at our content and say, how long until people are actually taking action to what it is that we're saying? Because if they're going to take an action after a paragraph, 2 paragraphs, then why am I writing 3 and 4 and 5 and we're wasting time. How do I get people to take immediate action? They required us to stop for a minute, look at ourselves in the mirror and say, we can do this differently, right? You probably have similar instances in your space. My audience is running stagnant. They're not really paying attention anymore. The engagement's not there. Are you putting yourself in position to look at your own metrics appropriately and say, we may not be doing this in the capacity that is advantageous to the organization, right? So how do we do that? Who are we targeting? Many of the communicators get wrapped up in the mechanics of the communication without realizing that they need to understand their target audience. Who are you trying to make a point to? Who are you trying to resonate with? A few years ago, I was working for a college, and we were working on our recruitment packages and advertisements, and a boss of mine told me at the time, she was like, could you, I ain't gonna tell y'all where it was, because I don't want nobody to start looking it up. She was like, could you remove the earring, the tattoos? It doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't. Well, you're not 16 years old, living in a particular region in which this is actually resonating. That's the target audience. So if the target audience is tattooed and pierced, then I don't care if they look like Dennis Rodman. I need to get them in the seats, right? So are you actually messaging to the people that you're trying to cultivate? Or are you trying to cultivate people that you're messaging to over a period of time, right? Recruitment has a major point of forcing us to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I have to message and I have to speak to them differently. So who am I talking to? And then what do I want to say to them? Introductions to a particular audience means that you're paying attention to how that organization speaks. For the NAACP standpoint, I say this often to my team, I need to speak Capitol Hill and Corner Store. I got to speak to both. I got to speak boardroom and bodega. I got to be able to do both because I'm influencing policy, but I'm also influencing people. You within your own unique spaces have the opportunity to do the same. Who are you trying to speak to, and what are you actually trying to say to them? And this is the part that's not fun within the communication space because everybody gets excited about the ads. Everybody likes a good video. Everybody likes to look graphic. Like, just put a picture on it, make it look real pretty. But the reality is that a messaging document, a messaging framework, ooh, that's the part that don't nobody want to stick around for. That's the less than fun part. You know why? Because it requires us as organizations to look ourselves in the mirror and say, is this who we actually say we want to be? So your messaging framework documentation allows you to show up and be exactly who you said you were going to be at the beginning. So I don't have my team working on graphic designs if it doesn't resonate with all the other things we said we were going to be at the beginning of the year. That's the less sexy part. That's the part that most people don't pay enough attention to. Are we spending enough time disciplining ourselves with the messaging that we're trying to resonate? What are you talking about? Your message discipline. Core messaging framework identifies the strong value proposition and clear message of your organization, what you live by. I often say this as well. Who do we want to be when we grow up as an organization? I can't solve that today, but long form, 5 years. How do I want my organization to show up? Not just for the moment, but for the future, how do I want to show up? And so that requires us to sit still, as I just made mention to. What is our message proposition? What are my services that I'm offering? What type of products am I making available? Can we live in that space consistently? Are we going to hold ourselves accountable to what we're saying in these spaces? So your message discipline becomes key. I want you to do this when you get back to your own organizations. Go into different divisions within your organization and ask them what you do. What does your organization do? You'd be amazed at the type of answers you get back. All types of words and nouns and verbs and all types of stuff. Like, I don't even think we work at the same company. I don't think we do the same things. Ask the question. It'd be incredibly curious to figure out what type of messaging you're getting back from people. So are we spending enough time building message discipline so that it can be orchestrated appropriately across platforms? I use this often with my team, is that no matter what mechanism I'm utilizing, it has to sing from the same sheet of music, just different notes. Because my Instagram sounds very differently than my LinkedIn, and my Twitter sounds very differently. Twitter sounds different than a whole lot of stuff these days, but it sounds very differently than what my press statement looks like, but they should all be supporting each other. So they should all sing from the same sheet of music, just different notes. Why? Because we're building harmony within our communications plan. Everything needs to feel like it's a part of the same family. When you look at your messaging, when you look at what you're cultivating, does it make sense? So what are you talking about? This is something we learned as well. Most Black Americans say that it's important for them to be identified as Black Americans, not African Americans. We had to take that personal within ourselves. So even within our own communication, how do I make sure that I'm speaking to the audience that I'm trying to cultivate? I can't do what makes me comfortable. I have to do what makes them comfortable, which makes them feel seen and familiar in these spaces. So even as a 115-year-old organization, we have to pivot in how we speak to the audience that we're trying to cultivate as much as possible. Are you doing the same thing within your own spaces to ensure that you're having the best success opportunities within your particular nonprofits themselves? So small edit, watch this. A couple years ago, we looked at our mission statement for the NAACP. Original mission statement was, the mission of the NAACP is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People is to ensure political, educational, social, economic equality and rights for all persons and to eliminate racial hatred and racial discrimination. It's pretty good. Got no complaints with that. But then we went to targeting, went through messaging, and as a result, we came up with this one. Our mission is to achieve equity, political rights, and social inclusion by advancing policies and practices that expand human civil rights, eliminate discrimination, accelerate the well-being, education, economic security of Black people and all persons of color. See, for our audience in particular, it was important that we made the differentiation that we were speaking specifically to a Black audience first, and then all the other audiences as associated with. That's what resonated with my audience. I'm saying for your particular target audience, what's resonating with them? What target makes the most sense to them? How are you speaking to them in a manner that resonates with them appropriately so that when you're trying to cultivate them, bring them into a certain kind of conversation, they feel seen, heard, and as if the messaging is being said to them in an appropriate manner? Some of the takeaways from that: get outside perspectives. Ooh, that's scary. Talking to somebody else who's not a part of that conversation, who's not typically, we're doing message testing right now. We've got a commercial going on as we speak right now in Los Angeles where we're building out some commercials for the top of next year. That required 3 to 4 months of preparation for us to do message testing, targeting, figuring out what made sense to a larger audience, which means we had to look ourselves in the mirror and hear some really difficult conversations around how the organization was showing up. So get outside perspectives. Ask your customers to find out what they care about, because sometimes the thing that you care about is not the same thing your customers care about. Validate your assumptions. Every tool at your disposal to confirm, use every tool at your disposal to confirm or debunk what you are assuming about your target audience. You can do that through a number of different things: comments, surveys, different things like that, to make sure that whatever you're trying to lean into actually reverberates, makes a lot of sense within the space that you're talking to. And test to erase doubt. Test your target messaging with select subset of audience themselves. You can try these things with your digital advertisement. Some stuff, I was just making mention to this on the live stream a little bit earlier, but some of the stuff that we do, we just got to fail fast. Digital allows us the opportunity to do stuff like that. I can try some stuff out. I can see whether or not it resonates. I can see what the engagement looks like. If it is not resonating, I can pull back and say, let's go in a different approach. You don't have to, with the digital technology spaces that we have at our disposal now, you don't have to live in your failure, people. You can change. It's not a billboard sitting on the side of the road. It's like, oh my God, what was I thinking? There's hundreds of thousands of people all around here. There's billboards in your pockets. They're called cell phones every single day. You can change them over a period of time. So if it's not working, change it. If it's not resonating, change it. That's the difference in this equation now. Because of digital, because of metrics, we have the ability to look at data real time and say, this is or is not working. And we can make the pivot very, very quickly. Question for everybody. Why are you talking? Why do you get to say something about this? I only offer it in that perspective is because there's probably a lot of people within the nonprofit space who may do the same thing that you do. They might have the same service or the same offering, the same passion, the same conviction. So what separates you from the person you're working alongside? Why do you get to show up? There's several social justice organizations. Why does someone want to work with the NAACP versus working with another social justice organization? I offer that question to each and every one of us because it requires us to have confidence in the brand that we said that we're trying to cultivate, the organization that we're trying to foster. So why do you get to say something? What are you offering in these spaces that is different than your competitors, different than those who are in a similar space or an industry that you're in? These are tough questions that many times we don't spend enough time working on. Maybe it is the retreat that we need to spend some time on. Maybe it is the goals and metrics that we're building for the organization so we get to the end of the year and we know what success looks like for us collectively. But why do you get to talk? What is the benefits that you're offering your audience? What separates you from everybody else? Why should they work with you versus working with someone else in many cases? Sometimes it's relationships. Sometimes it's technology. Sometimes it's just brand and advertisement. Whatever those things are, lean into those spaces more holistically. So it's up to you as a communicator to get to know your audience and individuals to determine how to connect with them, even at 115 years old. I have to continue to ask the question, am I resonating with a new and progressive audience? If I have an audience that I'm trying to make care about the NAACP in a different manner. I have a 16-year-old nephew named Hayden Day. Does he care about what I do? Because I know why I care about it. I work here. I got babies. I got to pay for them. But does he care about what I do? Not from the standpoint of seeing it in a history book, but understanding the impact that it has on his life. Does your target audience care about what you're doing in a manner that is substantial to them? Something else we learned, working a lot with Salesforce as one of their partners as well, but it talked a lot about 94% of marketers believe that personalized marketing has a positive effect on brand building. It seems so common sense, but the reality is that it's something that a lot of times we don't pay enough attention to. Are you paying attention to what your brand is doing to build brand loyalty? There are some people, I think Kara said it earlier, during our conversation earlier, there's some people that the relationship that they foster with you is what's going to cost them to build adoption with your organization. That's what 94% of the marketers are saying, that your relationship with them is what makes the difference between them working with you or working with someone else, investing in you and investing somewhere else. So are we spending enough time making sure this is not just a transactional relationship? But a brand is about a relationship. It's about cultivating those things over a period of time. It says here, people crave connection with brands they love. Personalized marketing allows brands to better connect with current and future customers. Nothing is more exciting for me than when another brand ambassador, which is another customer, speaks well of the NAACP, because that means I did the job right. So when someone adopts your organization and said, I had a great experience, and they are becoming brand ambassadors on your behalf, that means that you're doing something correctly. How do we lean into that more collectively? So why is your brand different? A brand is a destination. It's never just a thing. It's something that you're always looking to cultivate and go towards, right? In the right hands, your brand and the business can go further. A brand is a promise. This is why the messaging framework becomes absolutely pivotal to your success. The pledge you make to those you serve, what they can expect from you, excuse me. And then lastly, a brand is a personality. What does it look like? How does the organization show up appropriately? The NAACP, probably 5 or 6 years ago, was probably incredibly buttoned up, probably historic in nature. NAACP now is more intentional, authentic in who we are as an organization on behalf of the community that we serve. Each and every nonprofit has the opportunity to do the exact same thing. I do it for the NAACP. You may do it for a nonprofit in your space. How do you differentiate your brand in those spaces appropriately? And what is your brand's personality? How does it show up? What does it look like? If you were to close your eyes and visualize your nonprofit organization, how does it feel? I know some of that seems really, Trovon's trying to be spooky when he says that, but the reality is that it has to have an authentic look and feel. The key takeaways from that: develop the content discipline, as I made mention to earlier. Content helps with branding because it helps customers learn more about the qualities and the specifications of a brand, but the content discipline builds loyalty. Unique narratives. How are you telling the story of your particular brand? The conversation that's happening right now with 30 people from the NAACP as we speak, which is probably still going as we speak, is talking about storytelling and the narrative that we want to show up as an organization. You have to be intentional about what type of unique narrative you're trying to offer, and then giving milestones along the way so that when you're sharing this information with your audience, it seems like it's on purpose, because guess what? It should be on purpose. And then use your name, your logo, your URL, strengthen your brand identity. Here's the thing, good people. We can have all the best ads in the world. If your website is not up to scale, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. You have to make the investment necessary within your online infrastructure so that it backs. Why? Because in many cases, your website is your brand identity. It's the first touch point for many cases. Somebody may not talk to you, but they'll talk to your website. They'll talk to what you have created. Are you giving them something that they feel is a reflectant of the brand, the messaging that you feel is most important? I'll leave you all with this. It's the same statement I tell my kids every single week when they want to get on the video game, when they want to go outside and do something. So, did you clean your room? Did you take out the trash? And most of the time the answer is no, because 11, 8, and 6, you got to repeat yourself, right? Just same thing with messaging. You got to keep repeating yourself till they get it. The message is always the same. Do what you got to do so you can do what you want to do. As communicators, as nonprofits, as disciplinaries within your space, you have an obligation to take care of the foundation of your organization. You have to take care of what is the priority for the vision or the leadership within the organization itself, because what it does, it builds equity within the particular space that you serve in, and it grants you the opportunity to expand into some of the stuff that you want to do. We're never going to get this right every single time, but the most important thing you can do right out the gate is to take care of the low-hanging fruit, build foundation, be consistent in those things, build benchmarks that you meet on a consistent basis, and then it grants you the opportunity, the equity necessary to expand and say, I wonder if we could try something a little bit differently. So everybody in here, the challenge is to do it differently, to challenge yourself to look in the mirror as a nonprofit organization and figure out where we can improve, where we can expand, where we can reset, where we can do these things differently. How do we show up in a capacity that matters, taking care of what we got to take care of first so we can build towards where we want to go as an organization. Do what you got to do so you can do what you want to do. Thank you all. Appreciate your time. Take care.